What's going on, everybody? Listen, unless you've been living under a rock, you have heard Street Fighter 6 has officially been announced. Yes, the whole Capcom Unity countdown timer for a whole week was leading up to a very fruitful and juicy 20-second teaser of Ryu's feat. But now we all know that officially we will be having Wide Ryu joining us in Street Fighter 6 alongside, of course, our favorite Joker Luke. So we already have confirmed the two starting cast members of the upcoming Street Fighter 6. We'll have more news about it coming in the summer of 2022. But that said, now that Street Fighter 6 is officially announced, we all speculated that that's what it was going to be. I figured I'd sit down and stretch 20-second teaser trailer into 10 minutes of content, because that's what we do. We take 20 seconds of teaser footage and we make content out of it and we speculate. That's what YouTube is all about. So why should you listen to me about what I'm going to talk about? Because I want to talk about the 3 things that Street Fighter 6 needs to do in order to ensure that it is successful. And here are my credentials for why you should listen to me. That's me being a professional shill at the Capcom Pro Tour Season Finals, alongside a professional shill, my coworker here, James Chen. So you can trust my opinion and know that it'll be fair, honest, and unbiased, of course. So that said, let's break down what Street Fighter 6 needs to do in order to be successful. The first thing that Street Fighter 6 needs to do is to commit to the model. This was a huge problem with Street Fighter 5. Street Fighter 6 needs to either fully commit to being a free-to-play game or fully commit to being a AAA title. Street Fighter 5, I always said, it released with free-to-play levels of content, early access levels of functionality, and a AAA price tag. Street Fighter 6 came out and it had nothing that a AAA title would have and barely anything that a free-to-play game would have, and they charged you $60 for it. It was a horrible, horrible release, and from that moment on, it was kind of weird. I feel like they wanted Street Fighter 5 to be like a platform, like a game as a service, but it was not quite that at all. Like, they charged a full price tag up front, and I just feel like the business model, it didn't make sense, and it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. If you look at Mortal Kombat is the best-selling game, not fighting game. It is the best-selling game, right? This game is a fighting game, but it's full of content. It has lots of things for people to do. It has the whole story modes. It has a whole overworld where you can run around and do whatever you want. And it has collectibles, and it has lots of things to enjoy in the game and content in the game to warrant having a AAA price tag. Street Fighter 5, on the other hand, had 2 DLCs for story mode a year or 2 after release, and it didn't even finish the story mode. I'm fairly certain that the story mode never finished. We were promised a third part or a second part of the Street Fighter 5 story DLC. It never happened, but it still came out as a full $60 AAA game, and it just did not meet those expectations. If you look at the other model we have, Fortnite, Brawlhalla. I mean, Fortnite, you've heard of it, you know about it. It's kind of successful. Brawlhalla is a smaller game, which is the #1 most played fighting game on Steam charts, and it just announced a couple months ago that it's going to have over $1 million in its prize pool for its competitive circuit. Over $1 million. Capcom, they think they're cool with their $250K for the CPT, but they just don't have the same funds. Brawlhalla took the free-to-play model, they sell skins, they do other things to generate revenue, and they're able to generate a lot of money for their pro circuit, keep the competitive scene alive, and keep people interested in the game. So Street Fighter 6, it needs to figure out what it wants to be. Is it going to be free to play? Is it going to be a full AAA release full of content on release to warrant the price tag or not? I think at this moment in time, Street Fighter 5 Champion Edition, which comes with all the DLC up until the latest season, is a great value. It goes for $40 usually when it's not on sale, but it's also on sale for half price and even more all the time. But there is a psychological trick that comes into play when you pay $40 versus the industry standard of $60, right? Now, I don't think that the difference in terms of content that a Mortal Kombat game has is worth $20, right? Adding story mode and a bunch of other features for people to enjoy of high quality, it's not $20 of value. It's a lot more, actually. But there's something psychologically about that. If you're not delivering that full experience, you cannot charge $60. You just can't. It makes people have expectations that do not match the quality of the product that you're giving. So Champion Edition at $40 is a great price point for what it is, because it's not a AAA game. Even if, the development costs make it worth that much money, it is not delivering the same content that you would expect to have from something with a $6 price tag. So yeah, I hope Street Fighter 6 lands the model and commits. Don't do this in between thing, this no man's land that Street Fighter 5 did. It makes everybody unhappy, pleases nobody, and you don't get the best of both worlds, you get the worst of both instead. That is the first thing that Street Fighter 6 needs to land. It needs to get this done correctly to make Street Fighter 6 a success. So what else does it have to do? Well, obviously, it's going to have to offer more ways to play the game. It kind of goes hand in hand with being a AAA type of title, but we need more ways to enjoy the game. Now, if you're watching this channel, you probably enjoy playing fighting games for what they are. You're maybe a little bit competitive. You go online, you play ranked, you know how to do a combo or two. You are in the 1% of the 1% of fighting game players, all right? The overwhelming majority of people who buy a fighting game or pick it up and play for a little bit are filthy casuals, and they need more things to do. They need more things to have fun with. There cannot just be one game mode. Fighting games as they are in 2022 have one game mode, all of them except for Smash. Smash is the only one to get this right. And I'm not talking about having like a really low skill floor and high skill ceiling that Smash has, where it has like simplified controls, but then it also has really in-depth mechanics. Because I understand there's a whole can of worms with that, and I like the mechanics of traditional fighters. But Smash has so many ways to play the game. I can go in and I can turn on low gravity, high speed, randomized items, things like that. Like, I can just mess with the settings and have absolute fun. I can make up random game modes to mess around with my friends. There's collectibles in the way of trophies and things like that. Like, why can't I turn on big head mode in Street Fighter 6 and just play a game of big head mode, and then weird interactions happen, like their hitbox gets extra huge and you can go for crazy jump-ins and weird combos that wouldn't work before, right? And it just looks funny. Why can't I turn on low gravity mode and jump around the screen and just play in a weird way that doesn't make sense anymore? Why can't I have 4-player party mode like Cross Tekken had, where it's just chaos with everyone on the screen? And also, one that's more traditional, the combo maker that Guilty Gear introduced with Strive just this past month. We need things like that in the game to offer people more ways to play the game that are not the competitive way. There should not just be one way to play the game. We need more ways for people to have fun, especially if they're not competitive with the game. Because I'm telling you, what happens is most people try to boot up the game, they want to play arcade mode, which once again, Street Fighter 5 did not even have arcade mode on launch. Then they go into online, they get their ass beat because they don't know how to play, and then they stop playing because it's too big of a jump. There's no way to ease people into the game with fun in the meantime. People who play for fun will accidentally learn how to play the game, and they might grow to be people who are hardcore players and continue to play the game and get sucked into the ecosystem and buy DLC and all of that. But without these things, the game is just, it's too steep of a learning curve and not enough ways to have fun. So Street Fighter 6 needs to nail this. We need more ways to play, and I want to mess around with some game modes. Give me a big head mode in Street Fighter 6, please. But the number one thing that Street Fighter 6 needs to nail, this is critical, it needs to be finished. This is the biggest sin Street Fighter 5 committed. Street Fighter 5 was the worst gaming product I have ever spent $60 on in my entire life. It was pulled out a year or two early from the oven. It wasn't even half-baked. It was a quarter-baked. The game was not complete. The game was not finished. There's no way you can spin it. The netcode barely worked. Lobbies didn't work. You got disconnected nonstop. There was no arcade mode. There was no story mode. The stage transitions weren't finished. There was constant bugs. There was rootkits. There were so many problems with Street Fighter 5 upon release. 8 frames of lag in the game. Like, the game was barely functional. When you got into the game and maybe you played local offline multiplayer and you gave a thumbs up to your opponent to tell them when you're ready to rematch, it was mostly okay. Like, I'm not even talking about the gameplay here, how you feel about that or anything. Just the product. It was a bad product. There's no way you can spin it any other way. It was horrible. Horrible. This has ruined the reputation of Capcom as a fighting game developer and the Street Fighter franchise. Street Fighter 4 had a ton of momentum going into it leading up to the Street Fighter 5 release. Tournaments were growing year after year. You know how rare it is for a game in its like 6th or 7th year to still have more people entering tournaments than the year before. EVO was growing every single year, right? That you don't see that. I don't think any other fighting game can claim that it was steadily growing for over half a decade in terms of tournament attendees. People were tuning into the tournaments. They were watching Capcom Cup. They were watching EVO in bigger numbers than ever before, leading up to Street Fighter V's release. Street Fighter V dropped. We had the biggest fighting game tournament of all time, especially with EVO. There was like 5,000 entrants or something like that. And you know what? After a couple months, it was clear Street Fighter V popped the bubble. The Street Fighter franchise bubble was popped by Street Fighter V, and it had to rebuild from that point forward. So that horrible release burned a lot of the casual consumers, burned a lot of the players. Slowly over time, they rebuilt trust and they started making the product something that you can be proud of. Like when Arcade Edition released, Arcade Edition Season 3 of Street Fighter V felt like when the game was actually released. There was a proper cinematic trailer, all the game modes were there, the cast felt robust, the gameplay felt better, the lobby systems were working, a lot of weird bugs were worked out. Arcade Edition felt like the formal release of the game. But that's 2 years too late. You cannot afford to do that. Street Fighter V as it is right now, I think it's a great game, and I think it's a great product. Champion Edition, $40, I think that's one of the best values and best products for fighting games you can get on the market today. I really do believe that. But I could not recommend to anybody with a good heart to buy vanilla Street Fighter V. If you were not like in the Capcom ecosystem, there was no reason for you to buy vanilla Street Fighter V at all. This cannot happen with Street Fighter 6. So we're getting more announcements this summer about the rest of Street Fighter 6, hopefully a trailer, hopefully some more info about its timelines. And we for sure have one more CPT year of Street Fighter 5. Now they haven't announced the details, so I don't know anything about that, but there's one more balance patch coming up in March and, you know, potentially another CPT season. So I'm hoping that they take the time to finish the product. Finish the product. You notice how I didn't talk about gameplay. I didn't talk about netcode. I didn't talk about any of those elements because those elements are a given. You need good netcode. You need the gameplay to be good. But if you don't nail the product, all of that is for naught. I just want Street Fighter to be a gaming franchise that people respect beyond just the fighting game community. We can have the best game in the world, but if it's wrapped in a bad product, the community will not grow. And that's my biggest fear, is the community not growing, right? We need new players. We need people to care about the franchise, and it needs to nail the product. Otherwise, who cares? Anyways, that's my thoughts. That's what I think Street Fighter 6 needs to nail in order for it to be a viable product and to succeed. Let me know if you agree with me, disagree, what you think is important for Street Fighter 6 in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, as always, please subscribe to the channel. It's the #1 way you show support and let me know that I'm doing something correct here, right? So that's all I have for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.